Okay, this is from my friend Rich. I was stunned him on what I knew about laws, and so let's talk about penalties for disinformation in the media. That ranges from significant fines, content removal, and account bans to potential imprisonment, depending on jurisdiction and harm caused, with laws targeting specific acts and falsely reporting crimes, FCC rules, so you might want to check with them, or creating deep fakes, while balancing against free speech, often relying on defamation laws or platform terms for legal false or general falsehoods. Laws vary, but often involve monetary penalties, content takedowns, administrative burdens, or criminal charges for severe cases like election interference or inciting violence. Typical penalties, monetary fines, ranging from thousands to significant sums, potentially debilitating for small outlets. Imprisonment for severe cases, particularly those involving national security, terrorism, or malicious intent. Content controls, orders to remove content, post corrections, or add disclaimers. Administrative burdens, licensing requirements, data localization, or increased reporting. Platform actions, account suspension or permanent bans, e.g., Twitter's strike system. Examples for regulations and laws: U.S. Federal Law 18 U.S. Code 35 criminalizes knowingly imparting false information about crimes or terrorism with fines and imprisonment or willful violations. Okay. Criminalize knowingly imparting false information about crimes or terrorisms. FCC rules prohibit broadcasters from knowingly broadcasting false information about crimes or catastrophes that cause immediate public harm, direct threat to health, safety, or property. Deepfake laws, proposed or enacted laws like the Deepfake Accountabilities Act, penalizes creating or failing to label manipulated media, especially for election interference. State laws. States like New York are implementing laws, e.g., Stop Hiding Hate Act, to increase transparency and require platforms to report or handling hate speech and disinformation. Key considerations: First Amendment in the U.S., strict constitutional protections limit government regulations of fake news as often considered protected speech unless it falls into specific unprotected categories, incitements, defamation, etc. Harm-based approach regulations often focus on false information causing specific substantial public harm, like public panic or danger, rather than general untruths. Platform liability. The debate continues over Section 230, which generally protects platforms from liability for user-generated content, with some advocating for greater platform responsibility. Okay, broadcasting false information, imparting, that means telling somebody. Okay, let's go there real quick. Imparting or conveying false information. Whoever imparts or conveys or causes to be part or conveys false information, knowing the information to be false, concern an attempt or alleged attempt to make or be made to do an act that would be a criminal prohibited by this chapter of 97 or chapter 111 of this state should be subject to a civil penalty not more than 1,000, which shall be recoverable of civil action brought in the name of the United States. Whoever wrongfully and maliciously or with reckless disregard for the safety of human life imparts or conveys or causes to be imparted or conveyed false information, knowing the information to be false, concerning attempted or alleged attempt to be made or to be made to do an act which would which would be crime prohibited by the chapter of 97, chapters 111. This title shall be fined under those titles, imprisoned not more than 5 years or both. Fake news and real damages. Okay, penalties for disinformation in the media. Okay, let's go right here. This is what I was looking at earlier too. Remember, these are also ethic violations. Penalties for media ethic violations range from potential sanctions, reprimands, job loss, license revocation, and reputational damage to significant legal consequences like hefty fines, civil suits, and even criminal charges, imprisonment for severe cases like child pornography or deliberate defamation, with severity depending on intent, harm cause, or jurisdiction, depending on the individuals and the media organization. Professional reputational damages, job loss, being fired, demoted. Professional sanctions, action by the industry bodies. Legal and financial penalties vary on jurisdictions. Liability for damage from defamation, invasion of privacy, or other harm. Criminal charges, imprisonment for serious offenses like distributing child pornography or intentional harmful disinformation. Regulatory actions, penalties from government bodies, potentially including license revocation of operational restrictions. Examples are violations, consequences, defamation, false statements, criminal charges, possible if done knowingly, leading to fines or imprisonment, child pornography, severe criminal penalties, including long prison sentences. Unprofessional conduct, fraud can lead to job loss, legal action, and damage to organizational culture, broadcast costs, legal fees, high costs for attorneys, personal costs, stress, emotional toll. Okay, so remember, disinformation is not only a legal violation, but an ethical violation, okay? Oh, I did that already, okay. Penalties for ethics violations in the media. You can get anybody for ethics violations. Ethics violation, government involves misusing public office for private gain. That's an ethical violation. It's also, against the law. It's illegal. It's a violation of the oath. It's a violation of the oath of public service. It's a violation of the basic obligations of public service. It's a violation of the rule of law. It's a violation of the letter of the law. Oh my goodness. You know how those are a lot of penalties, fines, removal from public service half a dozen times, a dozen times. And incarceration. You know how many prison sentences one can get for that? Well, anyways, ethic violations in government involve misusing public office for private gain, creating conflicts of interest, financial, impartially, accepting improper gifts, using non-public information for profit, or engaging in fraudulent activities like bribery, leading to penalties from reprimands to prison time, depending on severity, with common issues including conflicts in contracting, undisclosure finances, and outside employment issues. Key areas include financial conflicts, impartiality breaches. It's going on right now, these impartiality breaches. Misuse of position, and issues with gifts, outside activities, and post-government employment. Because, a lot of politicians, they make sure that when they decide to retire from politics, they got that job waiting for them. That's what they work for. That's illegal. That's just no. That's I tell you, that's in the basic obligations of public service. That is totally illegal. Common types of violations: conflicts of interest, making decisions affecting personal investments, property, or income, accepting gifts from ethics entities with business before the government, misuse of position, using public office for private gain, making unauthorized promises, or using government property for non-official purposes, impartiality breaches, showing favoritism, bias towards individuals or organizations. I hear they're cutting some blue states for their child care services, only the blue states. Hey, if it was nationwide, but it's not. It's showing impartiality breaches, okay? Improper gifts, accepting gifts, travels, or favors from outside sources that could influence official decisions. Getting a crown, medal, accolades. When you seek, no, your job isn't about seeking accolades. Accolades are bestowed upon you when you're in public service, and that is by those you took an oath to serve and protect, and that's we the people, the same SOBs I took a pledge of allegiance to. Fraud and abuse, bribery, false claims, or other deceptive practices, examples of violations. Program manager taking kickbacks from a contractor by overcharging the government. A public official failing to disclose financial ties that could influence policy decision. Official using confidential information for personal profit. Consequences of administrative censure, reprimands, termination, ethics training, removal from office, or disqualification from future public service. Legal fines, restitution, and significant prison sentence, in particular for bribery or major fraud. Government Ethics Office like the OGE, Inspector General and Department of Justice investigate and prosecute violations. Agencies track and report on administrative actions taken. You just click on that little right there, and it'll tell you. See that little, it looks like a paper clip or something, but just click on that. It'll take you to the OGE. Okay, but they're not gonna do nothing. They know this, what I told you, and all that other stuff. But they're not gonna do nothing without the red tape unless you want to file a complaint. You can learn where to request reports of other officials here, there, everywhere. So in the public interest, if you know that's a legal requirement by everybody in the legal profession to do what's in the public interest, penalties for failure to do that are outstanding. Imagine if people actually went to prison for violating not just the oath, but everything that's required by the oath. Nobody would be breaking all these laws or misusing and abusing their position. We wouldn't be living under the color of law. They wouldn't be operating under the color of law. We wouldn't have this conspiracy against rights under the color of law. It's not just against me, but everybody I've talked to. You've proven it to yourself. In almost every state, I've talked to somebody in almost every state. Numerous people in a couple of states, and you've all come to the same conclusion. And you only did it not by what I told you, but by what you read. And people, that's all I'm trying to do, get you to read, Everything I post is a whole lot you should know, and a lot of people will tell you that, you don't need to know. When anybody tells you you don't need to know, you need to know. You needing the law is like them pro-gun people. They say, better to have a gun and not need one, and to need one and not have one. That same thing is with the law. Better to know it and not need it than to need it and not know it. because that's where you wind up where you are. I was talking to Mr. Ritchie, Rick. I was talking to Rick, and I've helped out people in many different situations. I was talking to him, and I wanted to tell him, I didn't have time, the story about my buddy Bob, how I got him to stop wage garnishment. He got child custody, his divorce, all in one step. Well, I just went to court with him once. I just filed for an appearance because they wanted more money. Filed for an appearance. In that appearance, asked for a trial, jury trial, if it came down to that. Bob came with over a dozen affidavits, notarized and signed affidavits. The judge didn't want to hear him out at first, but we expressed the oath, he took, as prescribed in the Code of Judicial Conduct. So the judge gave him his right to be heard, which is in the Code of Judicial Conduct. And he said having, counsel at the time would be ineffective at that point. And the judge asked, what made you think that? He said, failure to expedite litigation. And he handed the judge a folder. Judge says, what's that? He says, litigation, I'm expediting. So he had over a dozen affidavits from reputable people that knew only him and his son and not his wife. And his wife was off. She was living with someone else and had a child by someone else, and they didn't have the money, so I'm not sure, but I think the hospital assumed that was my buddy Bob's child or whatever. But the child wound up in his name, and he had to pay child support. They were garnishing his wages, and he had to get medical insurance, and he had to pay all these back bills. But that one day in court, a judge threw it out, and they had to return the garnished wages. The wife, soon to be ex, had to get a job and pay back the state, and I'm surprised she didn't go to jail. That's fraud. But that led to his divorce. No contest on that. Child custody, full child custody. And Bob came to those with those affidavits because I told him, if you don't go to all these people and get notarized affidavits, if it goes to court and you get a lawyer and they're going to say, we're going to have to subpoena all these people. First, we're going to have to file these motion to compel so we can legally call all these people in for a deposition, and they're going to have to take off of work and come down there and say anything and everything they could say in that affidavit. So just tell them, put down the situation on an affidavit, write it down, type it if they want. And these were school officials, principal, teachers, first, second, third. Kindergarten, first, second grade, third grade, the doctors, the cop at the school, the landlord, took a copy of the lease, and that's what was in the folder. And the judge had no choice. But that's because he got it on the record. Judge got a little uppity. But he calmed the hell down and seen everything Bob's way, because Bob took the time. He did his due diligence, got those affidavits, teachers, doctors, dentists, police from the school. Always talked to them, the guy from the corner store, Saved himself a whole lot of time and money. That's how I became friends with Bob. He insisted we be friends and he didn't have money, and I never asked him for any. That's not me. That's not the way I do. Okay, people, I want to wish you good night. If you say prayers, say one for Bobo. Rest in peace, Bob. Nothing but love for you. We became friends. We did. We used to take our kids to the parks, the zoos, movies. For some reason, he thought he owed me. But he was a good man. He was, he never understood. It was always about the kids. Sometimes you don't have the greatest upbringing, and just because you didn't doesn't mean you have to be that way as well. I chose not to follow that path, and I seen where the child was best off, where he was getting everything he needed, and just doing the right thing for that kid. Because if things would have kept going that way, his kid would have had to go back to living with mom, and Bob would have wound up paying child support and bills and medical bills and insurance for a child that wasn't even his. And they didn't even want to mention the blood tests or none of that, and that was brought out in court too. That she was living with someone else, and etc. etc. But either way, little shout out to Rich. He's having some difficulties in court, and rest in peace to my friend Bobo. And wishing you, a long life and good health. May your Creator always be with you and rain many blessings. You have a good night.